Going ahead, uh, so first and foremost, initially they demanded that Tamil also be made an official language. University positions and government jobs also be reserved for the Tamilians, and Tamil has some kind of, or the Tamil dominated areas of Sri Lanka have some kind of autonomy to run the areas in which they live in. Obviously, the majoritarian-minded Sri Lankan government accepted none of these policies, the eventual result being the following. Now what was a demand, certain basic demands and a demand for autonomy became a full throttle demand for a different country, namely Tamil Eelam. Eventually the country descended into civil war, and civil war is the deadliest kind of a war where countrymen fight each other. You don't really need an external enemy to come and kill you. Tamilians fought against the Sinhalese, etc., etc. Not many of them had anything to do with each other personally. It's just the government entirely favoring one community over all and totally disregarding the interests of another community, and quite unwittingly creating hatred and distrust among countrymen. This is what happened in Sri Lanka. What was a particular situation, they totally mishandled it. On the contrary, let's see how Belgium handled it. Once again, I revised the Belgium condition for you. It has a ethnic composition of 59% Dutch, 40% French, 1% German nationally. In the capital Brussels, it is 80% French, 20% Dutch. The country is divided into two regions, Wallonia region and Flemish region. Wallonia region is French speaking, Flemish region is Dutch speaking. So here's what Belgium did, which they felt could accommodate the aspirations of every single community. First and foremost, the Dutch accepted a 50-50% ministerial representation in the central government. Note that the Dutch were in a majority, the Dutch speakers were in a majority in the central, nationally in the country, so they actually had a greater stake in the central government. They agreed for a 50-50% ministerial division in the central government. Now, in life there is no free lunch, as you all are possibly aware by now. So, the quid pro quo, as in a barter, which is an exchange system, was this, that in the Brussels government, which is the capital government, where French were 80%, the Dutch were 20%, the French in return agreed for a 50-50% ministerial representation. So, at least at the governmental level, there was no, either in Brussels or nationally, there was no question of majority-minority anymore. There was a third kind of government, which was the community government. Community government had exclusive powers nationally, and no other governmental level could interfere in it with respect to three matters. 1, educational, 2, cultural, 3, linguistic matters. And the most beautiful part of this was the community government had Dutch representatives, had French representatives, and also had German representatives. 1% Germans were all German-speaking speakers were all that their strength was in the country. Even they were represented in the community government. Now that is something that has dignity to human life. Finally, the Wallonia government and the Flemish government, or the two regional governments within the country of Belgium, had many powers of the central government. Now, why were these central government powers delegated to these central state or provincial governments? As you know that Wallonia was dominated by French-speaking people, Flemish was dominated by Dutch-speaking people. Neither area or neither category of speakers wanted to be made feel like, or the national government did not want any of them to feel like that there is more partiality or more kind of developmental works or more priority or importance been given to one category, one particular area or one particular category of speakers. Guys, isn't this model unique, where irrespective whether you're 59% Dutch, 40% French or 1% German, all of you are made to feel wanted in the country? Quite clearly the model they created was that clearly told the people, and the people accepted it wholeheartedly, that you are Dutch, French, German speaking later, you're Wallonia and Flemish region later, you are Brussels citizens later, you are Belgian first, and everything else later. On the contrary, what Sri Lanka did in the policies they created was that they told its citizens that you have a good right to life, or a right to a good life if you're Sinhalese, and you're condemned to a bad life if you're Tamilian. So, the Sinhalese or Tamilian identity came first, and being Sri Lankan came later. Here, being Belgian came first, and everything else came later. For this extremely unique model of development, Belgium was recognized as, or the capital of Belgium, Brussels, was recognized as the headquarters of the European Union. I quickly summarize the Belgian accommodation or the Belgian development model for you all. Nationally, where the composition is 59% Dutch, 40% French, 1% German, the Dutch agreed to a 50-50% representation in the central government. In Brussels, where we had 80% French and 20% Dutch, the French agreed to a 50-50 ministerial representation in the Brussels government. There was a community government in which exclusively handled all educational, linguistic and cultural matters of Belgium. It had representation of Dutch, French and the German representatives. The Wallonia and the Flemish regions, the Wallonia region which was French speaking, the Flemish region which was Dutch speaking, both had many powers of the central government. Considering all of this, Brussels was recognized as the headquarters of the European Union.